So I have been learning new languages since maybe I was around 13 or 14. It started with French because at school that's what we were given a choice in. So how did a typical French course in school go like? We had a textbook, we used to study from there itself. But my interest went beyond the textbook because for some other reason I found it very interesting to study the culture, to study how that language evolved. And this got me to study and understand many other different languages. Say Japanese, say Mandarin. That's one of the most recent languages that I've started learning. And it is a task, trust me. Because my language learning journey has been pretty independent. So, me learning Mandarin, how does it really go now? I have my laptop, I have YouTube, I have my resources entirely by myself. There is one commonality between me learning French at age 13 and me learning Mandarin at age 21. I am practically doing it on my own. Yes, when I was learning French, I had help. And when I'm learning Mandarin right now, I do have help as well. But that help is always limited to putting that information into your head. How do you use that? That is entirely upon you. You know what that concept is called? It's something I mentioned last time as well. It's called learner autonomy. What does it simply mean? It means that you get the responsibility of your learning on yourself. You decide how you learn, you decide what to learn, and you decide when you're learning. Now, this might seem like a pretty daunting task. Let's just say it that way. Because when you're learning a new concept, when you're learning something from scratch, how easy do you think it is to keep yourself accountable when you're learning, especially when you have no external guidance or support? But learner autonomy has a lot of benefits and a lot of benefits. Say, now if I were to study for a competitive exam, that age of mine is pretty much gone as of now, but say if I want to do it now, I have all the resources available on the internet. I have all the guidance available on YouTube. In theory, I can learn and prepare for those competitive exams. So, what's stopping me? Possibly my discipline, possibly my accountability. But if I'm able to overcome it, how do you think my rate of success changes? Does it increase a lot? I would say so, yes. And this is something you definitely observe with those kids who take up their learning on their own. They develop a sense of accountability and they develop a sense of responsibility. And this is something you can use very well within your own learning journeys as well. So, what does this learning autonomy imply in the education sphere? What does it really do? It opens up a lot of possibilities, trust me on that. You can apply very different requirements and conditions to see if you have learned a concept or not. Let's take up an example. Say you're in grade 5 and you need to go to grade 6. What do schools do? They take up an exam, they see if you have understood the concepts that were taught in grade 5, and then they promote you if you have satisfied the requirements. Say if I were to change the requirements for grade 5, to what extent can I do that within an institution, within a school? Not really as successfully. But when I'm learning something on my own, say now that I'm learning Mandarin, and I want to see that whether I'm able to learn this particular character and use it in a sentence. Now that becomes my learning requirement to move on to the next character, if I'm able to use the character that I've already learned. So now I'm able to decide what is the baseline for me, what is the baseline to move ahead to another concept. Now I can personalize my learning requirements and my academic standards. So, how do we apply into our own learning? Think of your self study time. Your self study is where you get the most autonomy in what you're doing because you have a set of goals that you want to complete in your singular study session. Sure. In those goals that you've set up, the path is usually not defined. Rather, the path is something you have the most freedom in changing up. So let's make the most of it. Let us change up the path in such a way that you end up benefiting and you end up achieving your goals in your way. We have all free resources around. A lot of different places that you can acquire all of your resources from. And if they're not free, they're heavily cheap. You can afford them. With those baseline resources, the first priority that you need to target is a study routine. You sit for a self-study session. You sit and you've decided that you have a certain set of goals that you need to achieve. How much time are you going to take to achieve those goals? And how are you going to efficiently spend your time in each and every step to reach to that goal? Let us answer those questions first, and that will allow you to develop a study routine. And this is not just any routine. You end up studying, you end up as learning those concepts as well. That is now a learning routine. So, how do we determine that in a stipulated amount of time you have completed your study goals? That's where you decide your progress checkpoint. Say, when I'm learning Mandarin, if in my study session I have planned to be able to speak a basic sentence, say I want to say my name. So, what characters I need to be able to say my name, those are the characters I will try and learn in that study session. Apart from that, I'm going to also look at how these characters are used in different sentences, not just in the sentence where I'm able to say my name. In sentences apart from that target sentence that I have, if I'm able to use those characters, that means I have successfully inculcated them into my head. Now that becomes my study goal, to be able to use those characters in a variety of different sentences that people use in daily life. That is an autonomous choice that I have made. This clear cut shows the power of learning autonomy, of learner autonomy. Now, for someone who's just starting out, it may be a very difficult task to get a hang of, to understand how learner autonomy can really help you out, and to particularly understand what really you must do to actually see your study goals every single day. That's where a learning plan becomes useful. And making a learning plan is not that difficult. We do it very often at Learners Club. Rather, that is literally what Learners Club really stands for, giving learners the opportunity to learn and reach their goals entirely on their own. A base idea of what a learning plan is, we break down big goals into smaller and smaller chunks. So you have different checkpoints at different time periods. So when you break down that big goal into small ones, you can now successfully plan from one checkpoint to the other. So if I have a big continuous line that I can plot, Let's imagine that kind of a graph. If I zoom in to the distance between 2 points and I focus just on that, now suddenly that task becomes easier. That is what we do with a learning plan. So take up your task. Imagine it as this very big graph. Break it into small parts. Imagine it as this one small part of the graph and achieve that goal first. And then slowly build it up. That is how you do a learning plan. So, learner autonomy as a whole, as I said, pretty interesting concept. And it is very interesting to apply as well within the education sphere. So, students, if you want to become learners, take up charge of your learning. Teachers, if you want to empower your learners, help them explore. That is what you need to do to make learning natural, to make learning happen at the back of your hands. With this thought, I'll see you next time. Thank you and happy learning.